here is the app we are going to be building next. It's a very simple application, as you can see here. Nonetheless, there is a lot of pieces that we've learned and maybe a few other pieces that we haven't learned that we are actually going to be able to tackle and learn while building this app. You see here is a tip calculator, but with a little twist. So usually a tip calculator just shows the tip, right? But in this case here, we actually have this split part of thing where we can actually split to make sure that we know exactly if we have two people, how much the total, how much each person will have to pay depending on the bill. So in this case here, it's quite a big bill. If it's 250, what's going to happen for one person, obviously, that person, if the person gives a 10% tip, which is not that generous, let's do 20, the person will have to pay 50, right? So total bill is going to be $300 on a $250 bill amount, tip 20%. Okay, makes sense. Now, if you decided to bring along a friend, now you're two people, notice each one of you will have to pay $150. Now, of course, this includes tip and everything. The more people you add, notice the bill, of course, goes down because we're dividing by the number of people that we have. So it's a very cool application here. So as you can see, it's dynamic. You can change using a slider here, change the amount you want to tip, and you can change the bill. Let's say I want this point here is just $100 to simplify things. $100 at 50%, that would be $50. And if there's 4 people, $37.50. If there's 1, of course, $150. So it's really nice, simple application. There's a little bit of sophistication in terms of the design. As you can see here, the numbers are really nice. There's a nice color, nice background. This is what we're going to be building next. Very nice. So back to our home.dart here, and I'm going to start putting together a new stateful widget. So in this case here, I'm going to say STL, actually STFUL, like that, for a stateful widget. And I'm going to name this bill splitter, like this. As you can see here, we have two classes. One is responsible for all the state and, of course, for creating the container and the widget, the user interface per se. Okay, so everything is set up here. Now, there are a few variables that we're going to be needing as we create this application. The first variable I'm going to say is int, and I'm going to make this private. So I'm going to say it's tip percentage. That's that. And let's start at 0. Okay, and I'm going to create another one. This is going to be person counter. And I'm going to start at 1. You will see later why. And then we're going to add the bill amount. So bill amount is going to be a double, actually. That's 0 like this. Of course, this has to change to a double. Okay, so let's go ahead and start looking at our user interface. So I have here, as you can see, I have a screenshot of the application we're going to be building. That way we can have some sort of a guide as we go through the building process. Let's go ahead and start with the main container here. So the first thing, of course, I'm going to return a scaffold. And in this case here, you notice we don't have an app bar there. So we're going to not add an app bar, go straight to a body. I'm going to pass in a container as such. And let's give it an alignment like this. Alignment, I'm going to say center. Let's give it color. Colors.white. If we save this, we're not running this, of course. Let's go ahead and give it a run. But before we run, let's go to main and call the bill splitter like this. That way we're able to invoke the correct class. So let's run this. And just like that, notice it's just white background, which is fine. Okay, so let's go back to our home here. We have white. And next we are going to pass our child. And for our child, I'm going to do something a little different. Every time, this is just a little trick, I would say, every time you want to create a form or have a user interface that may be a little bit bigger than the device, it's always a good idea to put that in a list view. Now, we haven't really talked about list views yet, but a list view allows us to scroll up and down. So what happens is, because we're going to have a text field, whenever we hit that text field, the keyboard will show up, and the keyboard usually shows up to this point here, which means it may cover part of our user interface. But with list view, user will able to scroll up a little bit to see what's behind. So that is just a little trick to use at times, and we're going to use right now. So I'm going to actually put all the user interface inside of a list view as such, just a simple one. And for our list view here, I'm going to make sure that the scroll direction is vertical. So I say axis vertical. And then I'm going to just give it a padding. In this case, it's going to be an all around padding of, let's say, about 20.5 like this. Save this, you're not going to see anything yet. However, because we're inside of a list view, we can then pass our children. So the children, again, is an array of widgets, so we can pass whatever we want there. What we want to pass here is we want, first of all, pass a container. The first thing we're going to pass is a container, which we know now we can add width. In this case, I'm going to say the width is going to be 150, and the height is also, it's going to be about 150 as well. So what we're constructing here is our card at the top. This is what we're constructing. All right. And let's decorate it. So it's a decoration. I'm going to put a box decoration. And for color, I'm going to go ahead and say colors, purple, accent like this. And shade, let's say shade about 400. Maybe it's too much, 100. Okay, let's save this. If you go back, you can see now there is our card there. Of course, it's not up to par, but we'll get there. Next, we're going to put a border radius. I'm going to say border around the entire item. And I'm going to say about 12.0. Now we have that very nice corner radius looking really good. Now you notice that this item here and anything that's going to be inside of our scroll view or inside of our list view here, it's all to the top. So we're going to move this a little bit to the bottom. So give it a little padding or margin at the top. To do that, we can, there's different ways to do that, of course, but we know that we are inside of a big container, which is this container here, right? Actually, we have a few containers, but this is the main parent container. So the alignment is center, but we can also add a margin. Okay, so if I come down here, I can say margin. Now, there's different ways to add margins. I can just go ahead and say edge insets, that's that, and give all different kind of margins, right? I can say only, so I can have left, top, bottom, or I can just have all around margin. So what we're going to do here, we're going to use the edge insets, but not all, instead only, because now I can separate, say, okay, I want left or top or left and top and so forth. So I can choose and pick. In this case here, we want a top. So the top here, I can just go ahead and say I want 122, for instance, that's 0. If I save this and go back, you can see now it went down about 122 pixels or units. Very good. Now, there's another way to do this, okay? This is a better way in a sense that it's more dynamic, because remember, our app will run on different devices, and so sometimes it's a good idea to actually have dynamic heights and widths and so forth. But how do we do that? Well, there's this class called Media Query. So the Media Query allows us to actually access a lot of the dimensions and many other things, devices where our app is running. So if I say Media Query like that, notice it is indeed a class. I'm going to say dot. And because Media Query can deal with a lot of information about how things are being set on the screen, we have to pass the context. Okay, likely we are inside of a widget build method here. We have that context, we can pass it like that. And then I can say invoke size. And what kind of size do I want? I want the height. Now what it's doing is giving the height of the entire device, the visible part of the screen. That's very good. And so at this point here, I can go ahead and maybe multiply by a factor, so I can have a smaller number. Let's say I multiply by a factor of 0.5. Look what's going to happen. Save. And all of a sudden, this way went all the way down here. The cool thing is that now the distance between the top and the top of our card is always going to be the same no matter where this app is running. If it's running on a tablet, it's also going to be this much. Okay, that's very good. So in this case here, that's too much for us. So I'm going to just go put 0.1, and then we have that very nice gap there. Okay, so I just want to show you that you can actually do this. Of course, if we can say size that height, we can say size that width as well. Does that make sense? Okay, so what we're going to do next is let's add the text inside, just like what we have here. Okay, to do that, well, we know that we have our container. So that one here, I'm going to say child. And in this case here, I'm going to go ahead and pass a column as such. Now, this column will, of course, I'm going to add an alignment. I wanted this to be main axis center. So everything inside is going to be in the middle. And for children here, this is where I can pass something like text. For now, I'm going to say total per person and add another text here that would say, just to see how things look. And you can see there it is. It says total per person. There is the number here. Maybe this is a little bit distracting. Maybe we're going to move to the side here. That way, only reference when we need it. So now things are looking better. And that's very good. And the other thing here is that because here we are actually going to add a currency, I can just put a $sign like that. But this is a problem because $sign in Dart means we're trying to invoke a variable inside of a string, right? Double quotes like that. So this is not going to work. Now we have to escape that. Just go like escape like that. And then it's going to read this as just a $sign. So save this, go back. You can see there is the actual $sign. Very good. So we're making good progress. In the next video, we'll continue working on our user interface.